This is John 8. And this is verse 30. And as he was speaking these words, many believed in him. So Yeshua said to those Yahudim who believed him, if you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is that phrase that people like to quote. They like to misquote this verse. They give it's like called snippet theology, where people are like, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free or make you free. But that's not the verse. That's like a snippet out of it, right? And that's given out of context constantly so that people think if you can know the truth, then you're set free. That's not what he said. He said, if you abide, if you stay in my word, then you shall know the truth. Then the truth shall set you free. So this is a recipe with which we can have freedom. So we're sitting here experiencing tyrannical overreach on an ongoing, perpetual, continual basis, and it's driving us nuts. It's driving us beyond frustrated, and it's teaching us learned helplessness. That's the goal, that will respond with animalistic instincts, right? That will respond out of fear, okay? Out of fear and out of rage and out of anger and these things that cause these emotions to respond in us. But he's sitting here and he's telling us, listen, if we instead root ourselves, be staying rooted and grounded in love. So we stay rooted in his word. When we stay in his word, we abide in his word. When we diligently seek him through his word, what it does is it gives us the foundational grasp to be able to pull nutrients from the right source. It's like Psalm 1. Okay. If you guys don't walk outside and look at trees enough, go check out trees that are next to water. It's the best. Oh, if you live in the deserts, I pray for you. Yah opens up springs of water near you so you can see the goodness of this. I grew up so much of my life in the desert. Oh, so sad. It's so hard. It's really hard being in the desert all the time. Like it really is. It wears on you in ways you just don't even know or realize. One of the benefits in the deserts, I grew up in the mountainous deserts, right? So the mountains and the deserts have a very unique feature to them in that they get snow in the winter and then that slowly melts off during the course of the summer. So it allows there to be greater fertility. You know, it's like a trickle down system of water in places where there is none. So there's more life, right? Ponderosa pine forest is where I grew up in all the time. But there's nothing on the ground really. Like it's pine needles and rocks predominantly. You can walk through the forest unhindered completely everywhere you go. It's just like an open forest. And so it's a very different experience versus when you go out east, right? You start heading east and you get these thick forests, very dense overgrowth, briars and thistles and things that are just going to grab and tear you up. You can't really walk through them easily, except in the winter. Then you have this like season where you can go out exploring it a totally different way and just bushwhack more directly through the forest. And it's a totally different experience. But just being able to see trees that get to grow near the water and you get to look at the difference, the contrast. Like if you watch that Dangerous Dips episode, there is a massive there's hemlock and then there's these eastern white pines that are growing right by this waterfall and you just see the massive size of these trees, and that's because they're planted by the source of life. They are the exception where all these other trees died off in the course of, like, especially for the eastern hemlock, a lot of them died off and these horrific little bugs come in and just decimate their entire population down to a few. But the ones that were planted by this water survived, and they're these like older growth trees, and it's beautiful to get to see. But this is what it says, where that comes from for us. Blessed is the man who shall not walk in the counsel of the wrong, and shall not stand in the path of sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and he meditates in his Torah day and night. For he shall be as a tree planted by the rivers of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither. And whatever he does, he prospers. The wrong are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind blows away. Therefore the wrong shall not rise in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For Yahuwah knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wrong comes to naught. They're guaranteed endings to these stories. There's a guaranteed outcome that's inevitable that people are going to experience. Those that walk in the path of the wicked, they will inevitably experience falling into the pit that they have dug, the snare that they have dug. Like, this is how Yeshua is confronting these people that are resisting him, right? The Pharisees. There was this hierarchical ruling religious order. That's who he's contending with. There's a serpent cult predominant people that Yeshua, like, understand, he made his war with serpent cults from the beginning because there's these children of the serpent, okay? Not necessarily just by bloodline, like a lot of them starting from Cain, they believe, okay? It's a whole other long topic. That there is like a generational line that gives them kingship, gives them the right to rule, where they're like more of a Gnostic doctrine that people believe in, have transposed upon the scriptures. That Cain is of a different line and Abel was a different line. Man meant to toil in the earth, while the king, Cain, was meant to rule and govern over cities, right? This is this kind of elitism, goes all the way back to this place. This religious order, okay, the mystery religions have been practicing in these cults in so many different forms. And that doesn't mean they're always going to look like one religion, okay? They practice within religious sects. They practice within religious orders all over the world, transculturally, across all the different cultures of the world. This serpent cults have infested themselves because that's their ideological pursuit, is to go inside and infect things with doctrines of demons and lead those people back towards ultimately the authority of the dragon, to put themselves under the subjection to the great dragon. That's all this hierarchy is pointed towards. And here is Yeshua confronting those who are resisting him and resisting the truth, right? And here it goes on from that place where he's saying, the truth shall make you free. They answered him and said, we are the seed of Abraham and have been servants to no one at any time. How do you say you shall become free? Yeshua answered them, saying, truly I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. And the servant does not stay in the house forever. A son stays forever. If then the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are the seed of Abraham, but you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. See, their souls, the fertility of their hearts, the soil of their heart had no room in it for what his word was. They could not receive with meekness the engrafted word. They could not, because they had already been filled with the tares of the devil. Like the devil had already sown in so much false doctrine, so much doctrines of demons into their hearts that they were consumed with pride, and there was no room for them to entertain any of the idolatry, any of the words and the information that Yeshua was trying to impart upon them. They could not receive any of it. And this is what so many of you are going to bump into when you're trying to bring somebody to an understanding of the scriptures, and it's the beauty of it, the wonder of it. Like it says later on in the scriptures, like, to the world it's foolishness. Like to the world it's foolishness when we preach to people and share with them about the Messiah. And to the Jews, they hate it, right? They hate it. But to the Greeks, they think it's foolishness. They're like, this is idiocracy, a bunch of stupid people, right? This has been going on from the very beginning, okay? None of it has changed, the fruit of it, because the hearts of men have still been taken captive by the devil to do his desire with the very same lies that he spoke from the very beginning. They've been very effective, so he doesn't have to change his tactics. The enemy doesn't change an effective weapon system. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, we have had the B-29, the United States military. I'm just going to go there because I'm like classically trained in the United States military in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Especially with aircraft. The B-29 Super Fortress, right? This gigantic bomber, basically developed in the 1940s for the United States to develop a long-range bomber that was capable of carrying a tremendous amount of bombs, propeller-driven, okay? Not jet aircraft originally in that sense. Later on, jet aircraft. Like, these things are massive. Let me just show you a picture of these things because it would help so much. B-29 is kind of the origin story of our really heavy aircraft bombers. Let me show you this. And I'll show you what it developed into and where the world went after this. Okay. I'll show you the B-29. It'll help to have a little scale of reference to the size of these things next to tiny little people. This makes a difference here. Watch this. I'm going to show you two here because there's a couple different aircraft of this size. The B-52. This is where it comes from. So like in the United States is developing the strategic bombing air force, right? You know what I'm saying? It was like the Army Air Force, Army Air Corps at the time. The United States, when we were in World War II, we didn't have an air force. We had the Army Air Corps. Later on, the Air Force got developed. So let me show you this here. Check this out. Let me show you guys this. This is the B-29. You see the size of this thing? Absolutely massive, right? This is next to little people. This is like one of our first ones, things that we're talking about when we're firebombing Japan and just trying to melt them into pieces. This is the aircraft that we were like, had really developed and honed to be able to do that. Okay. Later on, this project got developed into the B-52 Stratoforce. Okay, this thing has been around since, like I said, this is the 40s. Unbelievably massive. This is it. Okay. First flight, April 15th, 1952, 71 years ago. You see this? This aircraft has been in service in the United States military since the 1950s. Now, there's been some moderate iterations to it over the years. Okay. Let me just show you it. Let's see if I can get you one in scale of another person. These are other bombers that they're showing it with. There you go. That's a good one. So you guys get to see it. B-17, this is one that was used predominantly in Europe. The B-17 Flying Fortress, when you're thinking about all the air raids over Germany and over France and all these places where you're bombing the just snot out of. Horrible, crazy times. This is B-17. They built these like crazy. This is the B-29. Okay. Then the modern B-52. This is the one that we have adopted and been utilizing ever since. Okay. When you have a weapon system that is highly effective, they don't stop using it. Okay. Why change it if it works so well? That's basically been the ideological pursuit when you make war about it. The enemy has had very effective strategies that don't need any changes done to them since the beginning. He's had thousands of years. You must understand, you're fighting against immortals. It's the better translation of angels in the scripture should be immortals. It would help you instantly have a different picture because you've been brainwashed by Catholic doctrine of flying naked babies. That's who you're fighting. You're like, the angels, those little puffy baby fart fairy things. No, immortals. Brilliant, smarter than any of you, all of you. Seriously, smarter than all of us combined. Not a joke. You guys are people are like fearful of AI. You guys understand something. The smartest AI is never going to outcompete the immortals. Do you get what I'm saying here? They might embody it. They might try to put the spirit of the immortals into the AI so that they have bodies of technology with which to interface with. That's maybe a different that's a totally different topic. We can get there someday. But the immortals have been around from the beginning. Okay, so understand they were created. They're not without a beginning, but they are without an end. They don't die. That's why they didn't need to procreate. And so the ones that rebelled and did procreate, that's why it was a huge deal because they never needed to have children, right? When Yahuwah created them, he created them with brilliance in totally different ways. But then when they rebelled, they took that brilliance, right? And they weaponized it as a form of like psychology. They weaponized the minds, understanding their targets. They evaluated why people are the way they are and what motivates them to do their bidding. Okay. And how do we take them captive? That's the whole sole desire of it. And so when you're dealing with serpent cults and you're dealing with people that are insidious infiltrators, wolves, coming in and trying to sow discord among the brethren, trying to steal and kill and devour. These people have an origin story that comes from the minds of these immortals. They've been trained by them. They have drank from the cups of demons. Literally, like people literally sit down, you guys, and drink from skulls, and they consume these the ideological like concepts of these beings, of these immortals. They consume their doctrine, their words, and then they consume the blood, the life of them. You must understand that's why it procreates. That's how they carry on these secret teachings generationally. This is why the forms of Malthusian eugenics, right? Why people are like, oh, the people are going to keep breeding indefinitely, and there's only limited resources on this planet Earth, and so we got to find ways to systemically kill off the population so that there's nowhere near as many people, right? That ideological endeavor came from the minds of the immortals. The Watchers sowed that doctrine into the cup, they poured that doctrine into the cup of the skull, and they gave that to their partitioners. And that's what they've been drinking from that cup of eugenics. That's why we see now here we are 180 years out from that, and we're seeing the fruit of that being born forth across the world stage, where people are literally getting up there and saying it's better that people die than they cause harm to the planet, right? Total misconstruction of understanding stewardship. Like we were called to be stewards of this earth. We are not called to be tyrants over the earth. But unfortunately, we have people that make foolish decisions and govern things out in horrific ways. This cup of sickness that the people have drunk from has made them blinded their minds. They're literally drunk on it. They're drunk on it and they can't stop it. Okay. And the world system of these immortals, what they've been able to do is they've been able to create a society. They've been able to create a society that rewards that type of behavior. That if you go down this psychopathic road, if you go down this searing of your conscience and you're willing to play along with them and their ways of destroying morality, destroying family, destroying righteousness, finding ways to eradicate self-sovereignty and to create instead global governance. If you're willing to go along with them in that agenda, they'll reward you for that. And that's why some of you guys need to seriously pray and consider whether or not the devil is the one blessing you. Some of you guys have been blessed and prospered in a sense throughout most of your life because you were never an effective enemy against the kingdom of darkness. In fact, you were actually a collaborator with him in building up his kingdom of darkness. And some of you need to seriously wrestle with whether or not you have actually put yourself in a position throughout your life that the reason you're being blessed may not be from your creator, may not be from Yahweh, the Most High. It may truly be the devil that's blessing you and keeping you from experiencing opposition and difficulties and persecution because you're not actually in the war against him. You're actually contributing to his kingdom's goals. Like you're somebody who's building the engines for the B-52 Stratoforce to go ahead and bomb the remnant, right? Some of you guys are a part of that system. Now, if you're there as a double agent and you're on assignment and the Father's given you directive to go into a place, man, go for it all you can. Some of you guys need to stay exactly implanted inside those organizations and inside those places and do your deeds from within to be able to cause the seeds of righteousness to get sown everywhere, because we're supposed to bring the gospel of this kingdom to every creature. And for some of you, the Yah's literally opened doors for you to be able to get into places where nobody else can. And I pray that Yah blesses you with the wisdom and understanding, like Esther was, supplanted way behind enemy lines. You know what I'm saying? Like some of you guys are way down deep inside the belly of the beast, and that's where you're supposed to be on assignment. If you're supposed to be there, I applaud you. But for those of you that have just been lukewarm in the system for a long time, understand there's this great war that you can be a part of every single day for the souls of mankind. And that's where we're supposed to put our labors. If we put our minds towards that, like our talents, our gifts, like the things that the Father's entrusted to us to do, put ourselves in that pursuit. He will bless us and empower us to do mighty deeds, right? This is what happens in the showdown here. Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. And the servant does not stay in the house forever. A son stays forever. If then the son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are the seed of Abraham, but you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. I speak what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth which I heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. You do the works of your father. Then they said to him, We are not born of whoring. We have one father, Elohim. Yeshua said to them, If Elohim were your father, you would love me, for I came forth from Elohim and am here. For I have not come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not know what I say? Because you are unable to hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, dragon, and the desires of your father you wish to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and has not stood in the truth because there's no truth in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Who of you proves me wrong concerning sin? And if I speak the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of Elohim hears the word of Elohim. Therefore, you do not hear because you are not of Elohim. See, the devil, you must understand something, has placed in the hearts of men his desires. When we hear the words of the world, when we hear and listen to it, and we give grounds to it, and we repeat it, when we gestate on it, when we chew on it, when we think about it, when we ruminate on it, when we take in those influences, understand we are going to do the desires of that word. Okay. That word, the word of truth, the word of the gospel, the word of the kingdom of righteousness. When we listen to that, when we take that in, like that is why, you guys, I did the audio recording of the scriptures, was to try to literally wash my home in it, like trying to sit there. It started with me sitting down and reading the scriptures to my children at night. That's where it started, man. Over 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I sat down every night and tried to read the scriptures to my children because I understood the value of the last thing on their mind would be hearing their father's voice reading the word over them. That was where it started for me. But then I found an even greater benefit to it, that if I could have that just saturating my family, that would be the goal, that they would hear this truth. Like my children have heard that word being spoken over them. And so that's why a year ago, I did the audio Bible project. I spent months working on that before the twins were born. I wanted to have a legacy. Because full disclosure, you guys, I live like I'm dying all the time. I do. It's hard for me to picture a long life. Does that make sense? It always has been. I've struggled with a time perception problem. I have good vision. I have excellent vision, but I lack an accurate presentation, an accurate perception of time. And that's because when it was so early on in my life, time was so short lived for so many people around me. I saw death so readily, so often, that it skewed my perception of long life. To me, life was something that was very short and very cheaply valued. And so it has taken me years and years of deliberately trying and seeking to restore an accurate understanding of longevity for my life because I could not imagine living to be a teenager. I, I, I could not fathom the idea of living to graduate high school. Like I genuinely could not perceive myself surviving that long. I could